Should be working now, I think. Let me test this super quick. Hello, hello. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. I think that we are set. Great. Okay. I apologize for this bumpy introduction, but let me start. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. If you're coming here, I am doing another daily live stream where I am building Finsweet attributes live. Okay. Last week, I did this for 2 hours a day from Monday to Thursday. That's still the plan this week, but I changed the schedule. I changed the time slot just because I'm playing around with different time slots. Um, so this week, starting this time, well, 3 minutes ago, for 2 hours, I will be live building. I will be doing a bit of my day-to-day work when creating attributes version 2 and just sharing what I'm doing. So, Shane, thank you for dropping by. Appreciate it. If anybody else is watching this and you want to say hi, I really appreciate your comments here. Just even if you're just staying for a couple minutes and then leaving, that's all good. I am doing my thing. I'm going to be building stuff. I will be commenting out loud what I'm doing in case that you're interested in how does it look like when you're building a library like attributes. And if you want to interact, if you have any questions, anything that you would like to ask me or explain to you, I will be following the same process as last week, which is I am doing Pomodoro cycles. So in here, I've got my timer where I'll be working, doing a deep work for 25 minutes, explaining what I'm doing, but not really answering any off topic questions. And then every 25 minutes, I will be doing a short break of 5 minutes. So if you have any questions, anything that you would like me to check, whatever, just let me know in the chat and I will be happy to answer or help you as the best I can. Great. So in about a minute, we're going to start with the first cycle. If anybody's curious about the point where I'm at, I am exactly at the same point where the last live stream ended. So if you're following along this journey and you are curious about, knowing all the details of how these comes to life, um, just check out the last live stream. Maybe you can check like the 5, 10 last minutes of that live stream so you can, connect it with this one. Yeah. Well, Shane, thank you for this. Yeah, I'm also pumped. The team is pumped. Finsweet team is pumped as well. This is going to be a cool update, and there's a lot of people looking forward to it. Great. Okay. So, hey, Demetrius, thank you for dropping by. Great. So let's start with the timer and the deep work. Um, Last week, what I was doing was doing radio filtering. So I've been implementing automated tests. Automated tests about all the different case scenarios, and I was handling the filtering. Now, when doing this, I bumped into an issue, a bug into the filtering system that was not returning the proper amount of items depending on some scenarios. We've got a bunch of scenarios defined here. The scenarios for where we are comparing for quality and for containing or not containing, etc. Depending on different types of fields, there are some fields that are single field, like the brand in this case, which is always a single field, but there are fields that are multi-reference fields. So an example is these fuel types. As you can see here, these fuel types can be one, but it can be multiple as well. And one of the problems that we had before is that we had no ways of distinguishing when a field in an item was a single field or it was a multiple field, right? So if it was a multiple field, like if we detected that there were multiple values, then we could just assume like, okay, there are multiple fuel types because each one of these items has a fs least fuel property. But there could be some cases where these multi-reference field only has a single instance, like in these item example. What happened in here is that instead of detecting that these was a multi-reference field, so potentially it could be an array of items, well, not potentially, it should be an array of items, because it detected there was only one value, then it defaulted to a single string, single value internally. I'm not talking about what the user notifies, but internally how we parse and process the filters. So I needed to change that. I needed to implement a different way of filtering where we distinguish, okay, is this property, is this field that in this case, this field called fuel, is this living under a nested list? Because if that's the case, if it's living under a nested list, these this property of each item, so this item, this item, this item, should store the fuel as an array of strings, not as a single string. And when doing that, I broke a lot of stuff. So now it's the time where I'm changing this, when I'm fixing this. If I remember correctly, that's what happened in here. Correct. So for each of the items in here, each of these items, internally we're creating a, a class instance that we call list item. And this list item class instance contains all the information of each one of these items. So it contains all the properties with their values. So it knows that there's a name field that has an alalo value. There's a brand field that has a vulgar value. There's a fuel field, because it's called fuel, that has these values, right? So before, we always treated everything as an array internally because we didn't know how to distinguish this. But we really need to distinguish it. So what I did instead was implement these very small uh, bit of logic that checks if the property that we're scanning, so in this example, these elements, is living under a nested list. So a top parent list, sorry, a parent list that it's still a child of the original list. So if this item is living under a list in here, but this list, it's not the list that it's holding all the CMS items, then that means that it's a nested list. So that's what's happening here. That's what we did in here last stream. So Dimitris, hopefully this gives you enough recap to be able to follow. And then now we need to update all the different operators where we are filtering things. Essentially, we've got a single function that is called filter items. And in here, we go through all the items, we go through all the filters, the filter values, and then we compare them depending on the operator. Each of these filters, in this case, we are only using radio filters, but each of the filters has an operator property in attributes v2, because you can distinguish, you can set up filters depending on the, so using different operators. You can check for equality, you can check for containing, you can check for values being greater than, less than, you can do fuzzy search. There are different operators for this. And in the case of radios, only two of them apply. One would be equals, so equal, not equal. And then another one would be contains or not contains. Now, the thing is that these two might sound similar in some scenarios, but are not exactly the same depending on other scenarios. For example, when doing equality here, if we have a single field property, like the brand, if we're checking for equality, we know that if we select one of these, we only need to check if the value is if the value is exactly this value. Now, the problem is that if we check for equality in a field that has multiple values, then the way this is different, right? Because we cannot assume that if we say that the fuel type must be equal to gasoline, let's say a hybrid, if the fuel type must be equal to a hybrid, but then this item has more than one, it's not exactly equal to hybrid. It's hybrid, electric, and plug-in. So it's not exactly that. It would be a match for contains because the fuel type contains one of these values if we selected hybrid, for example, but it's not equal. We cannot compare a single string with an array of strings. It's not an equality, etc. So all the operators here get their different case. And because we updated going from, let me show you, because we updated this like that, going from a single array everywhere to be potentially a single value or an array of values, we need to update all these case scenarios. So we did an update on empty in the case of if it's an array, then we check if there are items in case it's an array, and if not, it's a single value. Then we check if the value exists. Then the same for not being empty. So if it's an array, then we need to check if there are values in there, and if not, we only need to check if the value is truthy. When it comes to fuzzy, I think that we decided to put it aside because it's a different case. And we jumped into the equality. And I think that this one is the last one that we fixed before ending the previous live stream. So now it's time to do the not equal case, the contains case, the not contains case, that all these cases for greater, greater, equal, less, or less equal. Okay, so let's do this. Let me try to remember what we did in equal. So let's remember that both the filter and the field, if we're talking about the filter value, we are talking about this value, the one that we're collecting from here, which can also be a single string or a multiple or an array of strings, because it could be a single field value or it could be in a checkbox group where you select multiple of these, like I select this one and 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 this one, right? And then also these items, as I mentioned, the field data could be potentially a single value or an array of values. So in the case of the filtered data, so this one, filtered data, if it's in a string, you know what? I think that it makes more sense to change it the other way around. I think that I'd like more if we do first check if it's an array, and if not, then we fall back to whatever it is. Let me do that. So this is old version. I'm keeping it for a second. Let's do a new version, which I'm going to check if the array is array, the filter data. So this value, if it's an array, yeah, correct. If it's an array, then we need to compare both arrays. We need to do, okay, so because we're checking for equality, that means that we get two arrays in here, got two arrays in here, and each one of these arrays needs to have the same exact items, which could be 1, 1, and 2, and 3. And the same thing for the other array. So if the other array has 1, and 2, and 3, that means that both arrays are equal. Doesn't matter the sorting, even if these it's sorted differently like that. These doesn't really matter. The thing is that they have to have the same exact items inside. If something changes like this, then this means that this is not equals, like that. Okay. So first of all, what we do, let me try to remember. We check for the lengths to be the same. That makes sense, because if there is one missing item, then we know for sure that it's not the same. Okay. Then I could actually copy this, but I'm just making sure. Then we check that every single value from one array. So we go, okay, this value needs to be in here. This value needs to be in here. And this value needs to be in here as well, right? So that's what we're doing. We are going through all these values in here, then we are checking if the filter, that's only for TypeScript, I believe, but then we're checking that the filter, let's compare this. This would be the filter, and this would be the fields, the item fields. So in that case, we need to check, okay, each one of these, is it contained inside in here? Okay. So some value, and then we are checking if they are equal. So it would be this bit of logic in here. Now, field data. Right. Yeah. So here I need to do this because essentially, if the filter data is an array, so if this is an array, but these is not an array, then there's not a match. So we're just saying, hey, if this is not an array, don't match it, just return false. And then we can compare everything here and do this. If there's something that some item in here that it's not matching any items of here, this is going to return false. Otherwise, it will return true like that. Okay, so that's handled. Now, let me check filter data, the value. This should be a string, correct. So if there is no filter value in here, because now I'm reverting this, can I comment this out? Filter data value. Yeah, this logic is, this line in here, I don't like it, but we need to do it for the TypeScript because it's TypeScript, it's still not smart enough. Because I'm checking for filter data to be an array in here, but then because we are nesting a callback in here, TypeScript loses context and it doesn't know that we've already checked for this. So this condition will actually never be met because we're running this inside here. I don't know why, but we need to do this. I think that in a newer update of TypeScript, this was fixed, but I can't remember, honestly. I will check that later. Okay, so here they should be fine. Then in here, this can be a string or it can be undefined. Now, if it's undefined, if there is no filter for this, we need to return true, I believe, right? Yeah. Again, we are checking for this when we've already checked it in here. I know that's redundant, it's just for TypeScript, but if there is no filter data value, hold on, could this be falsy? No, because it's a string. Then return true, like that. And then in here, we can keep this without needing to check for a string, I think, because we know that this is a string. Right. Yeah, I just found one bug in here, which is that I was not checking for parse filter value. Hold on, what is this callback doing? Parses the filter value based on the field type. Okay, yeah, let me put you in context. So in here also, these properties, all these properties, could potentially be not only string, but also numbers or dates. We have an additional attribute that it's called fs list property, not priority, but property that allows me to define an item value as a number or as a date. I explained this in the previous live stream. But because of that, we need to make sure that, first of all, when we are parsing these filter value, because we always get it as a string initially, when we parse it, it has to match the same type. So if it's a number, it must be parsed as a number. If it's a string, it must be parsed as a string. Now, the thing is that not only that, but we need to check if the values are arrays or single values. So let me see if we can improve this. Equality, parse filter value. We know that in here, each one of these, it's a value, field data. No, we can keep it as is. As just by knowing the type, that's fine. We don't need to check for things being arrays or not in here. We need to check it outside. Yeah, we need to check it outside. So in here, um, not only this, but if the field data, it's not a string, it's not a string, we need to return false, right? Because at this point, we know that the filter, it's not an array because we checked it in here, which means that it is a single string. Now we need to make sure that also this comparison here, we're not checking for arrays, we're checking for single values like this in here. So we need to make sure that both the filter is a single string and the field is also a string. Now we need to check if it's an array actually, because this not only could be a string, but it could be a number in the data as I was saying. So array that is array like that. What if I do it more? I'm trying to simplify this because I think that it's a bit more complex. What if I do this instead? And then I can do this. It's not an array. And this, right? Um, and else I can simply return false. So I'm simplifying things. This else is actually redundant. I'm simplifying things by just saying, hey, if both are arrays, good, let's compare them. If both are not arrays, good as well, let's compare them. Otherwise, we know that this is going to be false. I think that it's going to be simpler. I think that these will be simpler because then inside here, I should be able to do this, right? Because I know that this one, both are, yeah, both are not arrays. Both are not arrays. Then I'm getting the filter value to be string, number, date, etc. I don't need to check for this in here. And then I can return this to be equality. Yes, much simpler. Let me see if I simplified it or I confused things more. If both things are arrays, then let's compare both arrays. If both things are not arrays, um, if both things are not arrays, then we also compare them. Otherwise, mismatch types. I think so, yes. And by the way, let's put some music. How's the music volume like this? Nobody's watching. Let me know if it's high. Okay, let's do not equal. Let's try to follow the same structure. So let's compare arrays. If both are arrays, then we need to check either if it's different lengths, correct. If it's different lengths, then we know that it's not equal. Or in this case, can I skip this? No, I cannot skip it. But it's redundant, I know. Then we need to check that every value in here, it's not equal. Actually, that's not true. It should be some value. Because if only one of these values it's not equal, like this, then we know that it's not matching, right? So this should be, I know, right. We are already doing that. So we're checking for these items, some of these items. So either one of these or these or these does not match to any of these items. That's why we're doing some in here and every in here. Okay, good. Then this is the old. Then let's do else if here. Come on, Copilot, help me. Great. So these would be the primitives. So if both are not arrays, yeah. So if both are not arrays, then we check this and we check that they are not equal. Mismatch stats, then we need to return true because if they are different, we're checking for not equality. So that means that these matches, they would be true like this. Okay, great. Then let's do the contains. Alt. Okay, let's do arrays. Come on, Copilot, give me things. Let's check this. If both are arrays, great. Then check that in the filter data. Why is it doing the filter data? And why in here we did some with the field data. We would like to be consistent. Here we're doing field data as well. What about this? I would like to change this just to be consistent. Let's do filter data always as the first one. And field data. Doesn't matter really, but I want to make sure that this will be field data. Right. Then in here, actually that's better because then we can do this instead. I can do this instead. Like that. Because otherwise we were filtering, we were parsing the filter value multiple times. Okay, we'll fix this in a second. Take a quick break. Actually, I haven't tweeted about this. I uploaded a video, by the way, today. This morning. I was feeling like recording something. And I did this quick text box trimming video, which is a new CSS feature that is coming to browsers. Not yet supported in most of them. But if you're curious, go check it out. Meste, Hope you're good. Um, Sorry to bother you. You are definitely not bothering me. I'm happy to answer questions. I have a question about the new list solution. Will it be possible to have multiple instances filtering the same collection list? Yes. Yes, that's one of the things that we're going to be supporting as well. It's not built yet, but eventually in some of these live streams you will see it built. Yeah, that's one thing that a lot of people ask for in version 1. So essentially, yeah, one example from Misty. For example, the top bar and sidebar both filtering the same list. Yes. Or it could be that for some reason, style, design wise, in Webflow, you need to use 2 different collection lists, but you want to place them in 2 different places. So, yes, we are going to support this. There will be support for multiple filters per list. It's still not built in yet, but actually you made me remember that I want to, let's write this down. So features, filter, basic. I'm keeping a record of all the features. So if everything is built, like if there's something that needs to be built and still not done or not tested for, here I'm writing down all the cases. Filter, basic, support, multi filters, multiple filter forms. Users can filter a single list using multiple list element filters forms. That's for filter. That's for both basic, all, and this applies to the filters element. FS list element fill. Come on. Filters. Not started. No automated test. Nope. What have we done in the previous 3 live streams feature-wise? One that I think that it's pretty nifty, it's let me see if I can show it to you because this code might break now that it's, but I think it should work. Yes. One thing is supporting multiple next and previous buttons, because users might want to be switching pages using different UI elements. And then as well, a new attribute that is called load count that allows you to define how many items you want to load every time that you click on the button. In attributes v1, by default, it loaded the amount of items per page that was set on this list. So in here, for example, I have 100 items per list per page. So by default, I could not change the amount of items that I will load. If I clicked on more, it would load 100 more and 100 more and 100 more every time. But now with the load count attribute, you can change this. You can say, okay, yes, I do have 100 items per page by default. But when I click on this button, I want to load 20 per time. And this one, because it's a different next button, I want to load all the items. And in that case, the one that loads all the items dynamically keeps loading more items if some item gets added after you clicked on this button. So it just keeps adding more and more items until all of the items are loaded. What else did we do? We did a lot of automated testing. So essentially, we built all these different test cases to make sure that I don't push any bugs. There was definitely a lot of automated testings. There was a bit of refactoring of the code base leading to some of these functionalities. There were some tweaks on the fuzzy filtering, which I need to retest after doing those tweaks. What else? Can't remember, but I know that we've done more things. Okay, back to work. So we were doing this. It makes more sense to loop through all the filters instead of all the items first, because then I can parse the filter values instead in here. Um, so here we're doing, hey, if every single, I'm going back to the equality, I know, but if every single filter value in here, there is in this array at least one item that it's matching, then all good. If not, yeah, correct. If not, then we are not doing equality. Like that. Yes. Then I want to switch these again here. Instead of looping through all the fields and then doing this, that means that we are going to be parsing the filter value multiple times. Let's switch it the other way around. So let's do filter data, field data, filter data. Some of these. Then this is going to be field data, then I can do this, then I can do this, then I can do this, like that. I think. Filter value. Like that. So yeah. So then again, we're doing, hey, for not equality, we're saying, hey, some of these, so at least one of these must not be equal to any of these. So some of these here should be false actually. So some of these must not be equal to one of these. No, sorry, some of these must not be equal to any of these. So some of the filters, we're getting the value. Must not be equal. Oh, I think I'm messing things up here. I think that in here we could do some as well. Yeah, because as long as some of these is not equal to... No, we need to do every of these. Yeah, because we need to check each one of these. And all of these must not be equal to each one of these ones that we're checking. So if we're checking for 1, all of these must not be equal to 1. We're checking for 2, all of these must not be equal to 2. And if we're checking for 3, all of these must not be equal to 3. Yeah. Okay. Great. Then we can jump into contains. So arrays, first of all, let's make sure that both the filter and the field data are arrays. Then let's go over filter data. Let's check each one of these. Yeah, the problem is that we're checking for if these. How do we do this actually when doing contains? Right. So, okay. I think that I know how to do this. So let's imagine that we have this. We've got 2 filter values, right? And we're doing the contains operator. In that case, we need to ensure that it doesn't matter if there are more values in here, but at least the 2 values of the filter must be contained inside the item fields in here. So here I've got 1 and 2, and the item fields contain 1 and 2, so that would be true. If this was 1 and 9, it's not containing 1 and 9, so that would be false in here. So yeah, every value from the filter must be contained inside the item fields. Correct, like this. And I know that this is redundant, but if this was not an array, in that case, we would not display this. Yeah, like that. Okay, we're getting the filter value, and then we're saying, okay, some of these must contain some of these, but yeah, like that. Okay, great. Then let's do primitives. If we're doing primitives, then we are comparing basically strings. I don't know how we would compare numbers. Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to compare for numbers. The field data should be also be a string. So here, instead of doing this, let's compare for both to be strings. Because the contains doesn't match. If I'm trying to say, okay, does 20 contain 2? If it's a string, yes. If it's a number, doesn't make sense. We can only compare strings in here. So in that case, we don't need to parse the value like this. We would do correct this lowercase filter value. And in that case, oh, hold on, because in here we can actually compare also single strings. I could also do if it's a single string, the filter, then we can do compare. Let's do 1. I can compare it to something containing 1, so user 1, which is a single string. But I could also compare it to an array if the array contains these. So okay, let me try something. So we've got, let's do a table. Let's do a quick table here. Quick table. Here I've got the filter. Here I've got the field. Now the filter could be single or an array. And the field could also be single and an array, right? Like this. I can compare a single field and a single filter by just checking if one contains the other. So this can be done. This can be done. I can compare if the field is single value. And if the filter is an array, I can do that as well by checking if the field is inside of the filter array. So I can do that as well. I can compare if the field is an array and the filter is single. I can do the same thing, but the other way around, right? So I need to check for the filter value being inside of the array of the field value. And then the array here, I need to compare the items of one array being contained inside the items of the other array. So I can do all of these, and that means that I need to write logic for all of these. I need to write logic for all of these. Should. Okay. Okay. Let me try to simplify this then. If filter data value is undefined, then just return true, I think, because if there is no filter, we just display the item. That's good. Then that means that, let me check this here, and field data here. Potentially we have here, come on, why are you telling me that it's still potentially undefined? Really? Huh. And the field data can potentially be all of these things like that. Right. Okay, let's do these 4 scenarios. I will comment this out for a second. Let's do if. Let's start with the basic ones, which would be actually, this one can stay. So if both are arrays, which would be this scenario here, let's see if we're checking for this. We're doing this one. If both are arrays, then we need to check if the item fields contain the filter. So filter data, every one of these, okay, good. Now, if, let's do first, if, let's do this one. Let's do if the filter is an array, but the field is a single value. So if the filter is an array, and the field is not an array. So that would mean that this is an array. Come on. This is an array. You know what? In this scenario, I don't think that we should support it actually, because if here in these items I've got a single field, but also we need to check for the matching as well. Yes, there's an additional thing that we need to check in here, which is that there's also a potential um, matching and or. Um, yes, because the filter can potentially have match and or match or like that. Whew. This is getting complex. So we also have an additional attribute that is called fs list match, and that can be and or. And I think that by default it's or. I think. Is it? I would say so. Yeah, by default it's or, but it could be potentially and, like that. So if it's and, then that means that both the 1 and the 9 should be contained by the item. And in that case, that would be false, because this item only has a single property. And we are trying to check for 2 items being contained. So that would be false. But if it's an or, then we're saying, hey, either this one or this one is contained by this item. So if this would be false, but if it was this, then this would be true. Correct. So in here, not only we need to check for this, we also need to check for the matching. Yeah, I'm gonna go the long route. I know that later we can simplify this, but let's do this. Then we can do if filter data dot match. Let me see 1 second the match. I think that we default to or. Not for everything. We default to or when checking for the matches, but we when checking for filters, but we default to and when checking for groups and for conditions, I think. I think so. Yep, that's in here. Yeah, I know. There's a lot of different scenarios that we need to check the matrix. It's a pain in the ass. I think that it will be simpler if I define it. Yeah, the group data and the filters data defaults to and. That's why this is done in here. The filter data defaults to or. So one thing that I'm going to do is, instead of making this potential undefined, I know that this is a default. So I'm going to do this. Now let's leave it undefined. I know I'm going to remember this. So if it's and matching, where am I? here. If it's and matching, so field data, no, filter data dot match, it's equals to and. In that case, we are in the scenario where all the field lists must contain this, but it's not the case because the field data, it's not an array, and this is an array. In that case, it would only match if there was only one item in here, right? If there was only one item in this array, in that case, we could potentially do this. So we could just say return that the filter data value that length is equals to 1, because this is an array, right? Yes. And both things are equal. Correct. So if there's more than one item, then this is not matching. And then if there's just only one item, then we're checking if this one and this one are equal. Correct. Else, so in the case of not being and, which would be or, which is the default, in that case, we need to return that at least one of these is, so that this item is contained by at least one of these. So we're going to say return filter data, the value, like that. Yeah, Copilot did a good job. Thank you, Copilot. So essentially, at least one item of these ones must be equal to the specific one. Great. So this would be filter is array, field is not array. Then let's do the other way around, which would be field is array. Well, let's do filter is not array, field is array. Let's see. I just accepted this from Copilot. I don't know if this makes sense. So if it's not an array, the filter data, so we're comparing now this like that. And we've got the and or matching as well. And now I'm thinking, by the way, that the and or matching should also be considered in equal and not equal, but I'll revisit that later. Let me write it to do here. Check if and or matching affects this. And let me add this in here as well. Here. So we are in this scenario and we are saying, hey, this contains this. That should be supported as well. We have to check, okay, the field, some of these, depending on if it's and or as well. No, the and or doesn't really matter here. Right? And or. If I got a number 9 in this case, and we're saying, hey, the contains operator, we're saying, hey, this field should contain the number 9. The matching and or should not apply in here because I just have a single selection. So either it contains it or it does not contain it. But that's it. So I think that this is correct. Yes. I think that it is correct. Yes. Whew, my brain is hurting right now. What a pain in the ass the code is, honestly. Iranidic, is that music or fan sound? It is music, but I don't know how loud it is for you guys. For me, it's pretty loud, but I have it at the minimum. I can set it like this. But I think that that's quite high, right? Yeah, too much. Can you let me know what's the right volume? What about like this? Hey, I like this vibe. Hey. This volume is fine? Okay. Good. Great. Nice. Yeah, then I'll actually let me try the default because I always try the default, but I think that it's too loud. How do I do the default? Maybe a lick lower. Okay. Let me try the default for a second. This is the default. So, but that's higher than before. So you definitely want lower than that. Let me show you. Here is the controls that I have. This is the default. Here. This, almost silenced. This is how I had it before, which was fine for me. Like in my headphones, I can hear it fine. But I noticed that it might be too low for you. So something like this. Let's see. One, let me control it. Let me use the arrows here. I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's 5 controls up. That's 5 increases using the arrows. How's this? Enchante? That means good? Sismush. I need to translate this. Sismush. What does that mean? That's a good thing, right? Yeah, it's better. Okay, great. Doesn't take much of the focus away, but let's test it. Okay, so 5 increases it is for now. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Okay, great. Sure, Demetrius, shoot it. Quick question for Balda Town, which is a tool that we explored last Friday in the live stream, the Finsweet live stream. What do you want to know? Nice. Thank you. How do I call you? Eden? Edanidic? Is that the full name? Just watch the video. I'm wondering how it really compares to Cloudflare workers other than UI. Um, well, it runs on the Dino runtime. So that's one of the main differences. In Cloudflare workers, you are running in the worker D environment. Worker D, which is this custom environment from Cloudflare that supports many things that you be used to, but it does not support many Node APIs. In the case of Valtown, it runs on the Dino environment, and in Dino, you've got many cool things like built. It has built-in TypeScript support. There is importing of npm packages, so you don't need to install them. You just import them in your code, and Node handles everything for you, which is very nice for a platform like that. Then there's full compatibility with the Node APIs. There's an additional layer of security when it comes to roles and permissions, but I don't think that affects when you compare with Cloudflare. I mean, if you're building things from scratch, honestly, Cloudflare is a very good choice as well. The good thing of Valtown, especially for no coders, is the UI and the collaboration that it gives you. Because in this case, when you're creating things, you've got built-in AI, which is nice. You've got collaboration. You can comment out. You can let people come in and edit things. You've got the history as well. You can do pull requests. You can share the code and let other people create a clone of that, which is mostly what you could do if you are a technical user and you know how to use GitHub and you know how to connect to all the services and you know how to, commit the code, deploy that code, check for the history, collaborate with people using code, GitHub pull requests, etc. So Valtown would be kind of like a no-coder approach to what a full developer setup in Cloudflare would be, honestly, with the main difference of the Dino environment and the built-in AI for free in that case. Did I solve your question, Demetrius? Let's focus back. Yeah, it's all a matter of choice. Like if you're already comfortable with a stack, obviously you don't have much incentive to use Valtown. If you are somebody who wants simplicity, you don't want to have a full dev environment, you only want to create small snippets, collaborate with other people, etc. Don't care about deploys, don't care about all these developer jargon stuff, then Valtown is a very good way of doing things. Yes. Nice. Cool. Thank you. Okay, let's go back here. So we've done this in here, this in here. Yes. Now we need to do when both are single values, like this, right? In that case, we need to do primitives. Right? And in that case, we need to check for both being strings, because otherwise, as I mentioned, it wouldn't make sense to compare them. But now that I'm thinking, first of all, the filter data at this point, it should be a single. Hmm. No, right. We cannot know that. So we need to check if it's not an array. If it's a string, that's a good check. And the field data, potentially, we could simply check if it's not an array. Like that. You know what? Let me compare if like that. What if it's undefined? No, that cannot happen because we already have this check up in here. All right? So the filter data must be defined, yes or yes. And that's a string, so we could simply do this, really. So if it's not an array, and also this is not an array as well, then we simply need to check if both things are equal, right? Are equal, filter value, lowercase filter value, no, I can simply do this. Return R equal field data with a filter data. I should be able to do this. No, because we're using contains. We are using contains. That means that the item field, this one, should contain the filtered value. So the field data, let's do lower case field data. So that would be field data value. First of all, let's make sure that it's a string. Then let's put it to lowercase, like that. Then also the lowercase filter value, that's good. Then we need to do return lowercase field data includes the lowercase filter value. That's what I wanted to do. And then otherwise, all of these then return false. Oh. Let's review this for a second. If there's no filter, item goes in, all good. If both are arrays, then we compare each of the items to be included in the field data. If the filter is an array, but the field is not an array, depending on the matching, and matching, or matching, if the filter is an array, but the field is not an array, and means that every single value of the filter must be in the field. But because the field is not an array, that means that there's only one value. So if it's not a single length filter, then it's not going to return the equality, okay? Then the OR matching means that some of the filters must be equal to the value of the field, yes. And the filter is not an array, the field is an array. In that case, we are in this scenario here that confused the hell out of me, but thing that makes sense, which is that the field in here must contain the filter value. So we do this. Yes, correct. And then if both are primitives, then we convert them to strings, make sure that both are strings. And then we set them to lowercase just to make sure that things are compared correctly. And then we check if the field, which would be here, contains this. Whew, okay, done. What about the not contains? What about the not contains? I wanna do everything again. Can we simplify this? I don't think we can simplify this, honestly. I mean, potentially we could simplify this if we nested to avoid any. Let me try something just to see how it looks better. Another version. Let me see if, let's do, if array filter data value like this, then inside here we can put these one and this one, right? So we can do if, I think that Copilot will understand what I'm trying to do here. If this, then that means that we need to put this. Else, then we are in this scenario where it's not an array. Then we do this. Then we can potentially also do else if matching in here, right? In that case would be this. And then we can also do else if the or, in that case would be this. Yeah, it's just doing it for me like that. This would be that. And then if the else would be if this is not a filter, sorry, it's not an array. So that would be else in here. Else, that means that we are in these scenarios where yeah, we were checking for this and for this. Whew. I don't know if we're really doing any improvements in here, honestly. Else, like that, then it means that we are in this scenario. I'm not liking this. Yeah, all this nesting looks shit, honestly. No, let's not do it. So both are arrays. One is array, the other one is not an array. One is not an array, the other one is an array. And then filter is primitive, let's say. It's primitive. Both are primitives. Filter is array, field is primitive. Yeah. The other cases are not supported. Okay. Changing the music. It's being a bit annoying. Minimal house. Hey. Let's do this. Great. Okay. Not contains. So let's propose, let's do this. Let's copy this. right? But then let's reevaluate everything in here because now we're saying it does not contain. So we need to go again and check for things. If there is no filter, yes, all good. I think that we're already doing that here. Yes, we are. So this might be redundant actually. And here as well. Okay, so both are arrays. Oh, this is not minimal house. Nice. So if both are arrays, then we are in this scenario. And in here, we need to check if here we will have to check for the matching as well, I think. Right? What about the matching in here? I think that we also need to check for the matching when doing the contains. In here. We also need to consider the matching. Shit. Yes, we do. Forgot one scenario here. Because in here, the matching could be or matching or, right? Now, by default, if it's the match or, that means that at least one of these filters must be contained by the item field. So the item fields must contain at least one of the filters. If we do the and, then it means that the item fields must contain all the filters. And we default to or. So we need to do both. I think that I did the and matching, which is this, because we said, hey, each one of the filters must be contained by the item fields. Yes. So that would be if filter data match equals to and, thank you, Copilot. Otherwise, let's see. Otherwise, some of these doing the same thing. Like that, yes. And matching or matching. Ooh. Hey, Pablo. Gracias por pasarte. Thank you for coming by, Pablo. Appreciate it a lot. Okay, so these and matching and or matching here, it's handled right. Then let's go back and try to do the not contains as well. Okay, so these not contains, we need to review it again doing the not contains. So when doing the not contains, if it's the, let's say, if it's the or matching, no, the and matching, then it means that we're saying, hey, the item fields do not contain neither 1 and 9. This in here, right? So we need to say, hey, the filter data, yeah, none of these must be contained by this. And because we need to return true, that means that the filter data, every value from the filter data, or we can simply say, because instead of checking for every, we can simply say, hey, not some, right? Hold on, I need to think. Because we need to return true if we want to display the item, false if we want to hide the item. And in here, we are gonna say, it's gonna be false. Yes. Woo, brain fog. I will have to go over this a bunch of times. You need to make sure that the item fails. So none of these filters are contained by this. So every filter in here is not contained. So every filter in here is, should it be like that? Is easy? No, this should be an every as well. Because we're saying every filter from here should not be equal to any of these items in here. Right? The item fields should not contain none of these. Should not contain any of these. Whew, my brain is farting right now. I think that it's okay. I think should not contain any of these. So we go this filter and we check, okay, this filter, then we check every of these item and we say it's not equal to this. Then we go to this one and we check none of these items are equals to this. This will be technically right, but the thing is that now we're looping through potentially more of the items that we potentially need. Right, but the moment that we return a false, then these every is blocked. Yeah, and then it's cut. Okay, fine. Then the OR matching, we are saying, hey, at least one of these filters must not be contained by this. So we're saying, hey, the filter data, some of these filters every in here must not be equal, like that. Yes, correct. Ooh, okay. Filter is array, field is primitive. So we are in this scenario here. This is not contains now. And let's start with the AND matching. So in this case, we're saying, hey, none of these items should be contained by this. Now I just realized again that I think that I made a mistake when doing the contains here. Yep, I made a mistake when I did the contains. So stay with me. Let me mark this as done. And this is not done. Just to not forget about it. So in the contains, when the filter is an array, but the field is a primitive, we checked for same length in here when it's an AND matching, but it doesn't make sense what I did in here. The reason is because when doing contains, when doing a single field value, then we are essentially saying, hey, does this value contain these values? So it contains 9 and it contains 1. If it was a 19, it would match because 9, it's contained by the string of 19. 1, it's contained by the string of 19 as well. But if it was 29 and it was an AND matching, then this would fail because it would say, hey, 9 is contained here. Yes. So it contains these value, but these values, it's not contained by this. So this is wrong, actually. I need to do lowercase field data here. Then I need to do AND matching. I need to do return filter data value every raw filter value like this. Then I'm gonna get a lowercase filter data value. Yeah, this should be value as well. Like that. And we need to say return the field value. So this one contains this. Yes. And with your matching, we need to do it like this. So at least one of these, it's contained. So some filter data like this. That is correct. And I think that we need to do the same thing when this is a primitive. Let me try to remember though. This is a primitive and this is this. Then I think that here we did it right. Yes. Okay. So let me copy this. Let's move down to not contains. Like that. And now we need to check for the actual not contains. So now let's get move back here and let's say not contains. Not contains. If it's an AND matching, that means that this one must not be contained in here and this one must not be contained as well in here. So here, every value from here must not be contained by this. And then the OR matching would be that some of these, so some of these values must not be contained as well, like that. And now I think that I made another mistake in the contains. Not in the contains, sorry, in here. No, yeah, it's okay. Oh my God. We're almost done. We're almost done. Here, I'm gonna mark this as not done. Like this. And guys, I'm gonna take a break because I need to go to the toilet. So I'm gonna use these 5 minutes. And I will ask just toilet break. Be back in a second. like that. Cool. Okay. Be back in a second. Cheers. Enjoy your toilet break. This filtering logic, it's great. Has been, has gotten pretty complex, but we're almost there. We're almost there. After this, we're almost going to be done with all the different scenarios for filtering. I'm aiming to finish all the filtering this week. And after that, starting next week, it's all going to be all the work it's going to be towards prepping attributes v2 for the launch, because these filtering bits are the last missing pieces for the launch. In that load functionality, are we going to be able to conditionally change a class, for example, or disable the button? Can you give me an example, Dimitris? Are we going to be able to conditionally change a class? Yeah, I need an example. You mean, like, for example, depending on the amount of items that are left, you have a different class? You mean that if there are no more items to load, then we disable the button? What do you have in mind? There are some things that are being done by the library right now. Like, for example, disabling the button. If there are no more items to be loaded, then the button it's actually not disabled, it's hidden. But now you just made me think that maybe instead of hiding the button, what we should do is add a class to it. Yeah, for example, if there is 0 items to show, would we be able to say that was all, or disable the button? That's a good question. That is a good question. I think that it would make sense right now when there are no more items to load. So, for example, if I'm doing this here, the moment that there are no more items to load, we hide this button. But instead of hiding it, maybe it makes sense. Maybe it makes sense to add a class to it so the user can decide if wants to hide it, wants to set the opacity to 10% and maybe display like different cursor when hovering over it, displaying a custom message as well. That could be done by using CSS selectors. That's not a bad idea, Demetrius. I'm gonna write this down. It's not a bad idea. So let me do load infinite, not load more, add class to next button when disabled. Yeah. Instead of hiding the next button when there are no more items to be load, add a class like fs list disabled, maybe. I'll think of it. That's for load, more and infinite. And that affects the pagination next. Like that. Yeah, because in a recent Apple Design Engineer keynote, I was watching doing Unreal stuff like hiding instead of communicating is kind of confusing to the user. Okay, yeah. It does make sense. Yep, I will work on this. Thank you, Dimitris. So not started, not done, not done. Perfect. Okay, cool. Last round. This is the last 25 minutes of the work. After that, if there's any off-topic questions, anything that you would like to answer, ask me. I'm going to answer that, and then I'm going to end the live streaming here. Okay. Great. So let's go back to the coding. And here we need to do this. Filter is primitive. Field is array. Seeing these comments in big bubbles is weird. You mean like you don't like it? Filter is primitive. Field is array. So we are in here. Now we need to do not contains. And the and or matching doesn't matter in here because there's only one of these. So not contains. So what we need to do is check for every one of these and make sure that does not contain this. Yes. So we need to do every in here is not equal. It feels we are on display. But I mean, you're on display for the very low amount of people who are watching this. So it's not like there's a big audience in here at all. Not at all. So every one of these must not contain this number. So every one of these must not be equal. Every one of these must not be equal to this number. So in this case, these items would not match because it is actually containing it. But if this was the thing, oops, this was the thing, then it would match. Great. Like that. And then both are primitives. In that case, we need to say that it does not include the value. Other cases is false. Great. Yeah, tell me when it says Alex Iglesias has 1 million subs. Man, Demetrius, you don't know what niche we are at. there's barely a million people using Webflow. I don't think that there's a million people using Webflow. So there's definitely not a million people wanting to watch my YouTube channel. We're talking probably a few hundreds, maybe a few thousands. We'll see. I don't know. But thank you. Thank you for encouraging me. I appreciate it, images. We need to check for the greater, less, equal, all the stuff in here. Previously, we only checked for single values, but then we need now to check for multi-values. So we need to do the same thing again. If they are arrays, we need to use the AND or matching. If they are single values, then we need to do everything. Right? Which makes me think that we should go back to here to equal. Because this is no longer, this is not correct, actually. I'm positive. Appreciate it. Yeah, I'm constantly revisiting this, but every time that I figure something out, then I need to go back and say, okay, this was wrong. It's not fully wrong, but it is potentially wrong. Yes. So, let me see 1 second. Yeah, we need to consider the AND or matching as well in here. So, we're gonna say both are arrays. Then we also need to use the case where filter is array, field is primitive. Not sure about this, so let me remove it. Then also filter is primitive, field is array, like that. And then both are primitives. And just to make sure, we are in the equal checking. So in here, this is no longer the case, only if it's AND. If it's AND matching, then we need to check for both arrays being equals, right? And. So sorry, so all of the items from the filter being equal to here. Now, hold on, for the equality, it doesn't make sense. For the equality, doesn't matter if there's AND or matching. It doesn't apply. One must be equal to the other. But it does apply in here when the filter is an array, but the field is a primitive in this case. This could be AND or. If it's AND, that means that all the selected item values must be equal to this, which I know that it's probably never going to happen, but it would make sense. So in that case, if filter data that match is equals to AND, in that case, we need to say, hey, every filter data the value every filter data. Every filter data must be equal to the field value. Yes. Otherwise, return some items, so at least one of these must be equal to the field. Like that. there's one thing that I want to refactor, which is this. Okay. And now here we've done this. Now we need to do the filter is primitive, but the field is an array. So in here, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense unless maybe we need to support the and or as here as well. Because if it's and, we're saying, hey, how do we say at least one of these we're checking for equality. Checking for equality. I'm having an internal debate now. And it's going to be tricky to explain, but I'll try to do my best. So initially, my thought when comparing between the equals versus the contains operator was that the contains operator would behave differently depending on the type of values. So if the values were an array of items, like this, then if we wanted to say, hey, at least, like in this case, where we have a single filter, but we got multiple field values, if we wanted to say, hey, match at least one of these items. So let's say, okay, the field values contains this filter value, right? But now I'm realizing that that might be a wrong statement because we have the and or matching. And here in this scenario, I could potentially want to say, hey, not the contains of the equal value, but one of these items should contain this. So if I had, for example, 19 with the contains operator, I have no way of saying, hey, one of these items should contain inside the value, should contain this value. I don't have the way of doing that if I am treating always, when I'm checking for items being inside an array, using the contains operator. If I do instead use the equality operator for this, and then I use the and or matching, The and or matching. In that case, I could potentially do, hey, okay, when checking for equality, if it's and in this scenario, then we have to say, hey, all these items here must be equal to this. And if it's or, which would be the default, at least one of these items must be equal to this. But then I'm moving also the matching, not only in the filter, but I'm also moving it to the field, right? I'm also moving into the field, which might be not ideal. Because then we need to support the match attribute as well in here. Okay, now I need to know how Airtable does it. So I'm gonna open some random table in Airtable. Let's check this. Let me see. Okay, so in here, let's just do something simple. Yeah, go away. Okay, what if I have like one, two, actually no, each one of these items should be, so let me, yeah, whatever. First, second, third, fourth, and in here, if I add another field that it has multiple values, I think that it will have to be this multiple select. Yeah. Okay, so in here, if I do, let's do 1, let's do 19, let's do 9, let's do 20, and 45. Okay, great. This one will only have 1 and 20. This one will have 19 and 45. And this will only have 1. Okay. Now, question. If I apply a filter, add a condition where the tags. So in here, has any of, has all of, is exactly, has none of, is empty, is not empty. So it supports, has any of would be the has any of, let's do, this would be the contains, probably. Contains with the or, using the current system. This would be the contains with the and, is exactly, we should be the equal, has none of, which would be the is not contained. Yeah, I think that we should maintain the structure that we did. So that there never we're not going to do matching for the field value in here. So in this case, the equality here would only be yeah, so this is fine, this is fine. Here, where the filter is a single value and the field is an array, we should not support this. I think that this one should not be supported. I think. And then if both are primitives, then we just check for equality. Okay, filter is array, filter is primitive. I think that Gopal will do a good job here. So the filter is an array and the filter is primitive. So here, then we're saying, hey, when it's and not equal, we're saying, hey, every value from here should not be equal to the field. So every value from here should not be equal to the field. And when it's or, we should say some value from here should not be equal to this. So some value from here should not be equal to this. Okay, good. Then filter is primitive, field is an array. Same thing, we don't support this, I think. Actually, yes. We know that it's never going to be equal. I think that I'm right. I think. I don't know. I need to do a lot of tests for this because I'm not sure. Okay, the not contains is also done. We all need to jump into greater, greater equal, less, less equal. Now here, this is wrong because now we need to check for, this is the old thing, old. So we need to do the same thing. We need to compare when both are arrays, when one is an array, etc. Both are arrays. Let's do this. Okay, so if both are arrays, it does not, I don't think we can do anything about this. How the fuck do you only write the code and not let taste it at the same time? Because for the live testing, I need to set it up and I'm lazy and I will set it up later. I'm just doing things in my mind, but it's getting hard. Now, how would I define a filter that says these item, so let's these item, at least one of these values is greater than this value. I may want to add this filter, right? How would I do that? As well as, how would I do if I said, hey, return me the items where. Let's imagine that these are years or units. The item contains a value that it's higher than this one and a value that it's higher than this one. How do I do this? Because now we're getting on the double matching. We are getting on the double matching. Fuck. I need to support double matching. Because when this is a single value, then it's all good. Because then we're saying, hey, both these and these should be greater than these. Which would be false. But if this was 2, then it would be true. But when doing an array, in this case, we can say, hey, both these and these should be greater than yeah, but matching for all in here doesn't make sense. No, yeah, we should say this and this should be greater than all of this, or this and this should be greater than at least one of these. So now we're putting the and matching in the filter and in the item as well. Fuck. Fuck me. Fuck me. Oh, I need to take a step back here and rethink this. Because I'm not really sure how to do this without polluting the setup with a bunch of attributes. Because now the thing that is worrying me is potentially I could allow to do, where is it? Filter here. Potentially I could allow to do the matching attribute in here, right? But now the problem is that this field might be used in multiple filters. In some filters, I may want to use the matching, a specific matching for the field. Some other filters, I might want to use a different matching for the field. So these matching cannot be added to the field because it depends on the filter. So that means that to solve this, I would have to do the matching like fs list match and also match items or something like that. But that's confusing as fuck. That is confusing as fuck. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I will give this a thought. I don't know. Tomorrow I will come back with more thoughts about this, because one of the things that I'm thinking that maybe would make sense is because there might be some scenarios that don't make sense. There might be some scenarios. But these are strings. But what if I... Because what if I had I'm gonna answer your question in a second, Demetrius. Stay with me. What if I had something like, I don't know, years, whatever, right? Um, Years like this, and these will be a number field, but it's called year, like that. Yeah. Let's say, I don't know, 900. I don't want decimals. No decimals. And no show thousand separator. No. Another 210, 225, and 100, whatever. Huh. 225. Right? And in here, I could potentially have um, reference from another field, link to another record, years, allow linking to multiple records, yes, skip. So then in here, I could potentially do this and maybe this. Now, if I'm filtering here, can I do where the years? No, actually, our table doesn't allow you to do this. And at this point, if nobody has asked for it, that means then it's really not needed. Because you can check if it has any of, it has all of, if it's exactly. None of, contains, does not contain, is empty, is not empty. What's the difference between has any of and contains? If I do has any of this, but what about the contains? Contains a 1. It's a 5. Hmm. What you're asking, what you're saying that you did, Demetrius, I think that it's similar to what it's also included in Attributes V2, which is a way of creating conditional groups. I can show you here. So this, it might not work now because I have all this broken setup. It might, maybe it works. Hold on. Is it gonna break? Is it gonna work? Let me see. Nah, it's fucking breaking now. But so you can add more groups. So then it would duplicate these, and then inside that you can add conditions, and from the conditions you can select the field to be something like that, and then you can also select the matchers like this, etc. Right? I think that this is what you said that you did as well, but it's going to be built into attributes. I'm going to take a step back and rethink this because honestly, and I feel like I'm doing too much work when I'm doing more work than I should be doing. I'm complicating things too much. I need to think about this. Question. I just finished building a multi-step form, and in each step, we had a question for one selection with radios. And we wanted the questions to come from the CMS. How do you uniquely identify each value within? Okay. That's what you're talking about. How do you uniquely identify its value within a group? We wanted the questions to come from the CMS. I built a solution that with attribute on CMS list, you add something like data group, custom name, and then in each rated button, bind it with a data ID, then programmatically add all of the items in the same group and sanitize the names so they display property in Webflow forms. But quick question, why? So what's the problem with using the native name property? So when you're doing radio buttons, oh, no, yeah. The problem, we run into the same problem in here. Because if it's a radio, you want to collect the value, right? And this is an example. Here I've got a list of radios that comes from the CMS. And each of these radios has a unique value. But the problem is that we cannot bind the radio value to a CMS value. Yeah, nor the name. The name should not be an issue, right? Or, because I mean, the name, usually you want it to be the same name because then all the radios are collected under the same group, right? But for the value, what I had to do is implement this custom attribute that it's fslist value that contains the name. In this case, the name property, but it could be anything. Contains the CMS value. So in your case, yeah, what you would have to do is a similar thing as you explained. You would have to create some attribute that contains the CMS value, and then programmatically, when the page loads, go over these attributes and update the value of each one of these using the data attribute or whatever attribute that you used in the radio field to pass that from that custom attribute to the native value attribute. Is this making sense, Demetrius? Yes, that's what we did, thinking of doing it in a solution for Webflow forms. Yeah, I mean, honestly, the ideal thing would be to just Webflow allow us to bind a radio value to this. That would simplify a lot as well. Attributes v2, because here we've got these fucking custom fslist value attribute that I only use it because of the limitation from Webflow of allowing us to bind this. So ideally, Webflow will release this natively, but in your case, it's nice that you're creating a workaround like what we're doing in here. Inner table contains filters records where a field includes a specific substring of value. Yes, that's correct. Even if it's this, because here I tried it and here it's doing this. Years contains 5. And in that case, it's looping through all of the items and checks for at least one containing this. So I think that what I'm gonna do is check all the scenarios from Airtable. I'm gonna use Airtable as the reference because I think that they have a very nice filtering system. And I'm gonna compare that with every single scenario that I'm checking here, which is, equality, when both are arrays, when filter is array, blah, 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 all that stuff. Yep. I'm gonna do that. It's more work, but I will have to do it. Okay, well, I think that it's time to end the live stream here, unless anybody of you watching, that I think it's not that many people wants to ask a question. And if not, first of all, I'm going to say thank you for the ones who've been following this. It's been a message stream. I think that it's been 2 hours of just me um, not knowing what the hell I'm doing, but maybe it was entertaining for you. I don't know. I appreciate for you spending time here, especially you, Demetrius. Thank you for all the comments. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. If you are interested in this and you want to keep watching me break my brain and have brain farts about this filtering thing, um, just come by. I'm gonna spend Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday same time. So from 2 p.m. UTC to 4 p.m. UTC, doing this work live. So come by, say hi if you want to do the Pomodoros with me. Appreciate it. And that's it. Thank you, Pablo, for being here. Appreciate it. And yes, I might go. Yeah, well, today it's not dance day, but I'm gonna do something to unwind right now because my brain right now it's steaming. Well, that's it, guys. Appreciate all of you. See you tomorrow.